marriage, children, beauty standards, labeling yourself. When it comes to being a woman, there are many societal pressures that are outdated.
We're going to chat about how to reject societal pressure and design your own life.
She, a podcast for the non-traditional woman. I'm Tiana.
And I'm Sophie.
And we're a couple.
Join us as we break down the modern feminine experience and explore an alternative view on what it means to be a woman in today's society.
Hello, all my modern women, and welcome to She, an acronym for Shifting Her Experience. We're coming to you from Los Angeles, California.
Woo!
Make sure you download and rate this podcast and follow us on Instagram at Shifting Her Experience. To start this podcast off, we're going to dive into what exactly a non-traditional woman is.
Yeah, so we believe that in this day and age, as a woman, you should be able to design your own life.
Yep.
Whatever that looks like. And we'll get into how we live a non-traditional life here in LA.
Yeah, very non-traditional. I mean, who better to guide you than two women in a relationship who moved to LA from outside the US, am I right? Yeah. So this podcast is going to feature topics from an alternative perspective and living life as a modern woman in today's world.
Yeah, and there are several categories to us that make up a non-traditional woman. You could be living life as a non-traditional woman in so many ways, and you might even not know it. Whether you're in a career that's viewed as non-traditional, you're financially independent,
or maybe you don't fit, gender stereotypes or a label within sexuality, you're all welcome here. Or maybe you're just looking to design your life outside of the whole traditional, like, marriage, kids, white picket fence box,
But before we get into everything, I want to give a shout out to our Woman of the Week, Mirella DaCosta.
Woo!
She designed our cover art, and fun fact, she's only 16.
Yeah, we are obsessed with our cover art. She's very talented.
She's a very talented young woman.
So tell everyone a little bit about yourself, Soph, because I'm sure everyone wants to know where that accent's from.
Yeah, I'm Sophie. I'm the one with the accent. I'm Irish, and I'm a writer.
And I'm Tiana. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, and I live in LA now with my beautiful girlfriend who is doing this podcast with me. And I work in video production out here. So we'll get right into it. Sophie and I are a couple. So I mean, already, that's just non-traditional to have, two femme-presenting women in a relationship. But aside from that, Soph, how would you say you classify as a non-traditional woman?
Yeah, I guess I just saw a lot of people living traditional lives around me, and I just felt that wasn't me.
Oh, yeah, I felt the exact same. I feel like growing up, I always wanted to be, more independent than a lot of other people around me. And I wanted a life that I didn't see around me, Like, I never saw someone leading that life that I wanted. I'm like, I'm going to go create it for myself.
Yeah, I love the idea of designing your own life. We talk about that a lot. Yeah. And I feel like, leaving the nest, and not only that, but leaving my home country. Yeah. And I've lived in Dubai, and I live here now and in LA, and just exposing myself to things that scare me and stepping out of my comfort zone and just really asking myself, what do I want from life? Where would I like to be in 10 years? And not just because you're seeing everybody else doing that, but what do you want to do?
Yeah, what is it exactly that you want to do in 10 years, even 5 years, even in a year, I think leaving the nest is a big part of designing your own life and becoming a non-traditional woman if that's the path you want. But I completely agree. So what would be your difference then, comparing non-traditional women to traditional women? Like, what exactly is different between the two?
Oh, I think the difference is that traditional women have been, nurtured in this patriarchal society that we live in, and they've been taught and think to behave in a certain way. And then the non-traditional, and anyone who associates themselves to be non-traditional, breaks out of that system, breaks out of that mindset.
That's a great definition. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it means to be a non-traditional woman versus a traditional woman. I think non-traditional women have that craving to design their own life. We keep saying that phrase, designing your own life, but that's exactly what it is. Not taking cues from society when also, thinking of your life.
Yeah, and a great example is women who don't want to get married, or women who don't want to have kids. I mean, you and I don't want to have kids, and I feel like
we don't.
We have been in conversations with people who can't understand that. And as women as well, they often make the point that it's your duty, isn't it?
You're a caregiver, you're a nurturer. You don't want children?
Yeah, and no, I mean, just because you biologically can conceive and carry a child doesn't mean that that is your role.
And I always just thought it was nobody's business in that sense as well for talking kids, because there are women who cannot conceive, like you were just saying that, like who cannot carry children, and I think that's unfair to put women in the position to have to answer that, and some people don't want to disclose that, nor should you have to.
It's assumed, though. Society assumes that's what women are going to do when they get to a certain age. And yeah, very fair point. Many women can't have kids.
Yeah, so, I think not wanting kids and not wanting to get married, you know, you and I never wanted to get married until we met each other, and that's a big difference as well. You know, we didn't grow up thinking like, I can't wait to get married to who, like, you know, like
it is something that we're taught, you know, like what I was saying about like people, like society teaching women to behave and act a certain way. You know, small girls, they think that the goal in life is to get married, is to have this big beautiful wedding and wear that white gown, and we need to teach like little girls that that's not the achievement. There are other things, you know. I know it's very cliche to say, oh, you know, like, you know, focus on your career, think about that, you know,
but really
but it's the truth. It's, you know, like teach your daughters to you know, ask them like, you know, what would you like to be when you grow up, and really really have that conversation with them.
Yeah,
you know,
and
instead of just like focusing on the wedding and being a wife.
Yeah,
know?
Not focusing on being like complete once you meet somebody and all that. I think honestly asking kids like, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up is such a great question, and leaving it open-ended. I was so excited to answer that, you know, and I think that's a big part as well, like how you grew up, and even if you grew up in a traditional setting, but you know, you kind of are sitting there like, oh, this doesn't really fit what
conversations are you having with your kids, you know, and emphasize those non-traditional subjects.
Definitely. And even if you grew up, like I was just saying, like in a traditional household, but you don't fit that, and you're like, like there's something more for me out there, you know, like that's how I felt at least, and I feel like that is 100% okay, and we are here doing this podcast telling you that it is okay to do that, because we have done exactly that.
I didn't grow up in a traditional home. My parents were very open-minded, very modern in their thinking, and we're basically like, you know, we're firm and like not strict but firm, and basically we're like, kids, you know, whatever you want to do or be, you know, do that. And I love that. I'm very fortunate enough to have that sense of freedom.
Yeah, freedom, that's a good word.
But I'm sure there are many women listening now who didn't have that sense of freedom growing up, and maybe lived in a very like strict religious home or whatever, like very focused on like traditional values.
Yeah.
Who are now like as adults or, you know, teenagers or whatever, thinking like coming into their own and thinking, okay, it's time now that I pave my own path in life.
I think for myself.
You know, like, what am I going to do different than the way I've been brought up? And, like, that's so amazing. Like, that's so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even that applies to, never mind just career, because we were talking career, but sexuality, gender, anything in that realm as well. Like, you can 100% decide how you want to live your life. And we talk a lot about, you know, we will definitely talk about labels and all that sort of thing, but like
yeah, we have a whole episode about that.
Yeah, a whole episode coming. But we talk a lot about using the term fluid even in sexuality to describe yourself when, you know, sometimes you're just figuring it out, and that's okay too.
Okay, Tiana, let's talk about sexuality then.
I knew that was coming. Yeah, let's talk about it.
There is a given that when you come out as being gay, then, you know, you are automatically non-traditional.
Yeah, you already kind of get the opportunity to like think outside the box, because you already, once again, are designing your own life. You know, you come out and you're in, let's say, a non-traditional relationship that's like same sex.
And yeah, like I said, just like breaking out of that system.
I think when you're a part of the LGBTQ plus community, you're already living a non-traditional life in that sense, like outside of the traditional like heterosexual relationships. So you kind of see that as an opportunity to completely pick and choose what you want from life. You know, you're not really adhering to gender norms and stereotypes anyways. So you're kind of just going along with it like, okay, well, I'm going to design my own life in every realm then, you know?
Oh, 100%. Like, even you and I, two women in a relationship, living in this apartment together, you know, like, we don't abide by stereotypical gender roles. I just think communication, you know, in any relationship is so vital. And
definitely.
You and I definitely are good at that open communication, because
we have
as
no
two
secrets
women,
as well, yeah.
As two women, we can't assume that like one of us is going to take on the role as one thing and the other one is going to take on the role as another thing. We have had to both put in the effort to do everything. What would be like traditionally the male role, traditionally the female role, like you and
those don't exist.
They don't exist in our house. So we have to do everything. So yeah, we have to communicate about our separate lives and integrate them together.
I think a lot of people, when they do get into a relationship, end up sacrificing a lot of themselves within it and sort of losing themselves. So I think you and I have done a really good job at, not doing that. And I don't know if it's the fact that we are just good with communication, or if it is because we are non-traditional and a part of the LGBTQ plus community, where you have the opportunity to say, okay, well, gender roles don't really exist. We're two women. So how are we going to, navigate this relationship, and what roles are we going to take on, or are we going to split the work,
I think what we try to focus on is to remain the same person that we are single in this relationship.
Oh, that's such a good point.
And that's very non-traditional. To bring your single self and everything that you learned when you were on your own into this couple. That's so important in any relationship.
Yeah, remember the values that you were looking for in your partner, and remember how you went into that relationship, and stand your ground, whether you are in a heterosexual relationship, a gay relationship, or a single relationship. Maybe it's just you. Just remember to 100% stay true to yourself. And it's okay if you change your mind on certain things. We're not saying don't change your mind, but
women need to put themselves first in any relationship, because too often we have been, I always say, the second sex. It's like one of my favorite books by Simone de Beauvoir. And
shout outs.
But she talked about how, women are the second sex. And I think in every relationship, as well as outside of a relationship in life, walking down the street when you're getting catcalled, remember that you're not the second sex, that you are an individual who's on the same level as her male counterpart.
Yeah, and that goes for career too. I know we've talked a bit about career at the beginning of this episode, and I am a supervisor at work, and I do have the opportunity to hire both men and women, but sometimes the language we use to describe a woman in the workplace is a bit different than how you would describe your male boss. Like, I'm super energetic and talkative, and some people would say bossy, but would we say the same thing towards a man? And that's, what our entire podcast and every episode is going to surround in terms of being a non-traditional woman, being a strong woman, like women's empowerment, and
being assertive. I think that's always my goal in life, is to just be assertive. I often struggle, but at times it's in the back of my head, no, I need to stand up for myself in this situation, because society's not going to do it for me, no one else is going to do it for me. So I think, being assertive is the key.
Definitely important. And would you say you have always been a non-traditional woman? Like, you always march to the beat of your own drum, or did you come into that?
No, I've always been.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I always, I like that, walk to the beat of your own drum. I definitely was like that as a kid. I've heard many stories from my parents.
Yeah.
I know for a fact I was very...
all the home videos?
Yeah, very assertive, and I was bossy. Were you?
Oh, definitely. I have been the same person since I was a kid until now. Obviously I've opened myself to growth and become more self-aware, that goes without saying, but I was that kid that, even at age 5 was trying to figure out what career I wanted and where I was going to live, and what was my life going to look like. So I always was obviously very interested.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about that? Even if you don't know what type of life you want, and you don't know what career you want. I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be everything, everything. It doesn't matter if you never really know what you want to do, as long as that you know that you're the one in the driver's seat.
Yes, that's such a good point. You're the one in the driver's seat. I love that. And I think that holds true to what a non-traditional woman is. That is exactly it. You are going to dictate how your life goes, no matter if it's in your career, if it's in your relationship, if it's all of them, if
it's in your single life.
Yeah.
If it's you, if you just want to be on your own and you don't want to be with anyone, that's what you want to do. And don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, and people find it so hard to believe that a woman would want to be single. Oh, you don't want to meet a man, you don't want to date. no, I am a complete person, even when I am single. And I think you and I, when we met, were two complete individuals, and we came together and it was like, we fit really well together. We love each other. We're committed to making the relationship work. And then we decided, oh, you know what? Yeah, we would like to be married to each other. It wasn't like the goal our entire lives, but when we met each other, then it was.
Yeah, we knew.
We knew.
But, it's all about like respect and being open with each other and listening to each other.
Yeah, just keeping that communication line open for sure as well. And I think, one of the biggest things as well as you go through life is really working on yourself and being self-aware. And I think the non-traditional woman would always make sure that she's checking in with herself to make sure that...
I love that point. Yeah. I love that, checking in with yourself.
That's a big part of whether you're in a relationship or not. We're talking about every aspect, career.
Having a little chat with yourself from time to time. That's so important. Asking yourself what you want. That's what a non-traditional woman is. And the reason why we emphasize on women is because women in general haven't been given that platform ever to really ask themselves, or not even a platform, a chance to ask themselves.
Yep, it's always assumed. It's always assumed that a man as well has the opportunity to design his own life. If he doesn't want kids, if he doesn't want to get married, that's not questioned, it's celebrated. And we want to be able to celebrate the women that want to design their own lives, because...
Yeah, that's what we're all about here in the She podcast.
Well, that's why She is an acronym for shifting her experience.
We want to be able to talk about women stepping out of that box and giving themselves their own platform to speak.
Okay, so if there was a checklist for the non-traditional woman, what would be some of the things that you have checked off?
Oh, Tiana, you really make me think here. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thinking for myself, being self-sufficient, firm in my opinions, wearing what I want, saying what I want, not filtering what I say. Yeah, I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, the list can go on.
Yeah. What would you check off?
Oh, that's a long list for me too. Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely non-traditional. Definitely being financially independent. That's a big one for me. And living in a country I wasn't born in. I've always wanted to live actually here in LA, so that was a big achievement. Being outspoken, I'm definitely not one to quiet my voice. So
I know that.
And another big one, yeah, just in terms of career, being a supervisor at work, which I am. So which can totally be a big part of being a non-traditional woman, being in a field that needs more women, like tech, engineering, CEOs in general, totally etc. Yeah. I'm very passionate about that.
Both of our lists combined are not even half the reasons why you would be a non-traditional woman. The list is endless.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. There's a lot of points to the checklist that you could tick off that would make you a non-traditional woman,
There surely is. So what would be your takeaway from this episode then?
Okay, my takeaway would be to allow yourself to design your own life, like we keep saying, and it is completely okay if your life doesn't look like the cookie cutter female experience that we've been surrounded by,
What we've been brought up to think.
Yeah. What about you? What's your takeaway, Soph?
To remind yourself of what you want. It's hard sometimes to know what you do want, but I think it's important to step back and ask yourself and go with it. Mm-hmm. Well, that's it from us today. We'd love to hear your story on how you're living a non-traditional life as a woman. Follow us on Instagram at Shifting Her Experience and send us a DM to be featured as our next Woman of the Week.
Yeah, and make sure you download, rate, and review our podcast and share with your friends to spark a further discussion on this topic. We'll see you next episode.
Bye!